guys, my name is Brooke Metcalfe, and this video is going to be about my story, my past experiences, and how God has really led my heart and what He's put on my heart. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and I hope some of what I say about my testimony and my past resonates with you. If not, just thank you so much for watching. So, growing up, I have always had the support of a huge family. I have two older sisters, a younger sister, and a younger brother, which makes me the middle child, which has always been fun. Because of that, I have so many people to lean on, and I have so much comfort knowing that if there's something wrong, I have so many people to run to. Growing up, we were always playing pranks on each other, you can imagine, and messing around and almost always getting in trouble. My family lived by Carmel by the Sea. I grew up there, I was born there, and I had two best friends, and it literally was the definition of a small town. And with that, I knew everyone I went to school with. I knew everyone in my classes and in the entire school. Adding on to that, my older cousin and my aunt lived with us for a long time, so our house was literally always jam-packed and full of noise, and I'll put it a good way, full of life. So family was my life, and it literally was my everything and my main focus. That all kind of started to shift and change when I had realized that my parents weren't really getting along like they used to. And I know without a doubt everyone eventually started noticing it, and it just became more obvious to everyone. For a long time we tried to ignore it, and eventually, we all just kind of knew. My mom would come home super upset, and we got really worried, that she was so sad and angry all the time. And as for my dad, he was working all the time, and when he was at home, he was kind of just offstandish and kept to himself. So, because of this, my siblings and I looked for comfort and refuge in each other. Eventually, as time moved on, my dad had to move away for work, and we were a big family unit. We wanted to make it work, so we would visit him, he would visit us when we could, even though it was kind of far away. So this continued on for 5 years. Started when I was around 8 or 9, and we just kind of had to go visit him whenever we could. None of us really understood why he had to leave, and it was kind of just like this unspoken thing amongst our family. We could tell that it hurt my mom a lot, and once he had to move, it just became more difficult for everyone. Eventually, halfway through my freshman year, we had to move from Carmel to Paso due to financial issues. With a big family, it was always hard to live in Carmel because it's such a wealthy area. And during that time period, my parents were also beginning their divorce. So you can imagine all the confusion and mixed emotions among not only the kids but the adults in the family. Everyone was resentful and angry, and we all decided to kind of cope with it and deal with it in different ways, and sometimes really bad ways. We would yell at each other, and we just would kind of let our emotions get the best of us. In those 2 years, I had developed this really dumb theory in my head that my dad didn't love me, and why would God? you know, I didn't understand what was going on. And I mean, it was freshman year. I was supposed to be excited about starting high school, and I was just so depressed and felt unloved and unwanted. And emotionally, it was really burdening for me because I decided not to talk to my family about it, which in the past I would have done, I mean, instantly, you know. And it was just so much was changing around me, and it was really hard to understand. Truthfully, I was most scared of never feeling, that family unity again, and never really feeling at home. And for a long time, I actually convinced myself I hated my parents. And I mean, growing up, you're always told hate is a really strong word, but I convinced myself that I did. And because I felt unloved and unworthy and self-conscious about myself, I decided to look for glorification wherever I could. Unfortunately, this was sometimes in the wrong people and in the wrong things, and I really just was acting out, and I would sneak out and do things like that, and I really started not to recognize myself for the first time. Through this, I simply wanted to distract myself from what was really going on at home and really in my head and my heart. I didn't know God personally, and I never really knew God personally. Sometimes when things got rough, I would pray at night. I knew who God was, sort of. My family never really went to church, and really the only push towards God I've had is, I went to a Christian preschool. That's literally about it. And because I didn't know God, I questioned Him, and I said, why would you let this happen to my family? Why would you let my family fall apart and let me fall apart? If you loved me, you wouldn't have done that. You know, I just was so angry and frustrated all the time. At this point, I didn't know who I was or what love really looked like. I denied all love in my family, and I refused to talk to them about what was going on inside of me and my inner conflicts and everything like that. And I realized that I was so lost and confused. Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 18 says, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you." So, that verse just made me think. At the time, I was so focused on the negative aspects of my life, everything that was going wrong, when in fact I had my family still there. And family used to be my life. I had the opportunity to go talk to my family and try to figure things out and mend relationships and bonds and things like that. And if I had just focused on the good things that I had and the positivity that was in my life and opportunity that was in my life at the time, then I probably would have understand God's will and why these things were happening in my life. So I started going to CLC, I believe, the beginning of my sophomore year, and I went to my first winter camp in 2016. And that's where I met God, and even though I went hesitantly with CLC, I ended up getting saved that trip, which was, God turned my world upside down that weekend. And let's see, like I said earlier, my family isn't religious, so I never really had an understanding of who God was and what He wanted for my life. I never really had an influence pushing me to understand more and pushing me to understand God's grace. So this is what I remember from being saved. I remember we were in the chapel, and all these kids my age were worshiping with their eyes closed, with their hands raised, and I looked around and I just thought to myself, how can these kids my age be so passionate, you know? And I realized that, I mean, not only did they let God in, but they gave room for understanding Him. And I just remember watching a couple people that I knew around me go to their knees and just start praying to God so furiously, and I looked around for a while, kind of in disbelief, this is kind of odd, and I ended up feeling overwhelmed, and I started kind of replaying things in my head about moving to Paso, and kind of all the things that were bad in my life that I decided to focus on the past couple months, you know, and I just began sobbing out of nowhere, and I felt such a big burden on my chest and my shoulders, and I went to my knees, and I just remember saying out loud, God, I am ready for you now. And ever since that day that I let God in my heart, I mean, my world has been turned upside down, literally. Every aspect of me has changed for almost the better, you know, and I've just focused more on positivity and kindness in my life, and I think that's what God resembles. And because of that experience, I continued to go to CLC and learn more about God and His will for me and others, and I continued to go to winter camp and Rock and Water and all those trips and stuff, and it seemed like coming to Paso was the biggest blessing I have ever received in my life. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and hope." Months before I went to winter camp, I thought I had no future, and I literally had no hope. And I couldn't understand why I had to drop everything and move to Paso. And I mean, everything just became so clear that weekend that God was working through people in my life to save me. That God's will was to move me and my family from Carmel to Paso. And I mean, through that I got to meet Him and know Him. And if I hadn't moved here, I'd still be, relying and choosing earthly things. And I still wouldn't know my worth and what love really is and what that looks like. The people here especially have really helped me get to this point in my life. And even through the ups and downs, I truly believe that I was meant to meet them, and that they were also vessels used by God. My COC family, I am beyond grateful for such a loving and supportive church, and just a family standing behind me as I enter this new chapter of my life. So I recently graduated from Paso Robles High School, and ever since freshman year I've been stressing out and freaking out about what am I going to do with my life, what am I meant to do, what am I good at, and I am very happy to announce that I've known for a while now that I'm going to do a 6-month course called a Discipleship Training School through a program called Youth with a Mission. This will be in South Africa, Cape Town, and I'm doing this to not only gain my spiritual footing and foundation, but to learn about God. And I got the opportunity to visit South Africa and the YWAM base there, and I got to know the area, I got to know the culture a little bit, and now I know things like how much money I need to do my laundry, and what my room looks like, and I feel so blessed to be prepared for this journey, and with that, I just feel like more more happy about it and more prepared for that. And through that experience, I got to go with God Squad, which is a dance crew here in Paso that ministers through dance, and other people from CLC. So, I mean, I was really happy to go with people I knew, and I felt more comfortable there because of that. I truly believe that the biggest, let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? The biggest motivator in my life is, I mean, one of the things I want to do is help others, and that's one of my biggest inspirations in life. And I think missions is really calling me to go to South Africa and do missions there. The truth is, like I said earlier, God turned my life upside down for the better, and He replaced my shame and loneliness with love and grace. And I will never really be able to understand what that means, and I just want to spend the time to learn about that and who God is, and how He's moving in South Africa. And the focus of my specific DTS it's called A Life Together, and it focuses on relational living and living in community. And I think that is one of the strongest, values that you could look for in life. Having people beside you and behind you, supporting you and loving you all the time. Growing up, like I said, I have a big family, and that has always been such a big aspect of my life. And I want to learn more about relational living and see what that looks like. I know God has put South Africa on a lot of our hearts at CLC, and I just want to encourage, I know there's going to be a lot of high school, middle school age people watching this, and I just want to encourage you guys to, find something you love and try to minister through that. God is love, and God is kindness and compassion, and you can really affect someone's life by being compassionate, by simply being kind and loving. And I just want to motivate you guys to look for that in your daily life and try to incorporate that, even like in your daily routine of going to school every day, doing homework every day. Try to find the good things. Try to find God in all of that. I just want to ask for prayer as I enter this new chapter of my life. If you feel called to pray, that's awesome. If you feel called to donate, that is awesome. And I just want to say thank you so much for letting me tell you a little bit about myself and a little bit about my story and what God has in store for me. So thank you guys so much. Have a good day.